So let's get us started with some thoughtful discussions and insights. So our first panel is going to be what we term a fireside chat, if you will. It's going to be led by Catherine Starghill, who is from the New Jersey Council of County Colleges, an incredible partner to NJBIA. We're so proud in all the work we do in partnership with the council, in particular our Pathways program, our Manufacturing Skills program, and the list goes on. But she's so familiar with all the issues surrounding workforce development in the state and a great person to lead this discussion today. We're going to be talking about diversifying the workforce and the multicultural and intergenerational workforce strategies that we each appreciate each and every day. Now, you have a QR code that is at your table, and if you hit that QR code, you'll see the bios of all of the speakers today, and we're going to let them introduce themselves. But for now, I'd like to invite up Herb Ames, Maria Diaz, and Mary Rizzuti, along with Catherine, to get the first panel going.
Thank you, Michelle. It's always an honor to partner with BIA. Your membership, your reach, your mission greatly aligns with ours at the New Jersey Council of County Colleges, where our student body is the most diverse of all of higher education. And so this forum is just fitting for me and for these speakers. So I will introduce each, but then ask you to tell a little bit about yourself. We'll start with Herb, President and CEO of Devon Group Incorporated. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you got here, and then we'll start the conversation once everyone has had an opportunity on the panel.
Sure. First of all, I want to say that that picture I have no hair. And I have to grow my hair out a little bit because my adopted son said, Herbie, he calls me Herbie, Herbie, can you grow your hair out? I want you to have afro like I have. Now that's never happening again in this lifetime, but I'm trying to grow so I'm showing a little gray, I'm a little older, but it's okay. So I started out my career working in special projects for a building material company and ended up becoming corporate vice president and actually head of human resources at the time for a $25 million, $20 million company sitting on 25 acres, 2 unions, Teamsters. So if you know anything about Teamsters, I had a great fun ride with Teamsters, especially back in the 80s. Oh, Stephanie, how are you, Stephanie? So Stephanie knows all about it. And then I went on to become Director of Economic Development for Mercer County, and the county executive at the time said to me, I see you everywhere. I said, that's because my boss asked me to represent Yardville Supply Company, so I showed up one year to 213 dinners. And the best part about it was I got to wear different types of tuxes, because back in the day, Michelle, you remember, we all had to wear a tux. And gowns. So, I wore all kinds of tuxes. So the county executive said, I see you everywhere. I said, that's just because my boss wanted me to be there. And so I ended up becoming Director of Economic Development for Mercer County. And at that time, I had a person who became my total right hand, who was one of Michelle's right hands. And he came to me, he said, look, I know nothing about economic development, but I will be your best employee. And he was 110% right, and that's Wayne Stobbs. So thank you, Wayne, for everything you did. We were able to build the baseball stadium. If you've been to Trenton Thunder Baseball Stadium, we were able to build the arena. One of our first events was WWE wrestling. So we've had a good run there. And then from there, I was able to start a bank. I founded First Choice Bank. We sold it in 2016. Nothing compared to Citizens Bank, Michelle, but we had a good run, and then I started my own company, and after that, right now I'm running the Capital Region Minority Chamber of Commerce part-time as a volunteer. I sit on a bunch of non-paid boards, sit on a couple paid boards, but my passion, so everyone understands what my passion is, and I know you're going to laugh, but it's farming, vegetable farming. I love vegetable farming. I have 300 Rhode Island red chickens for brown eggs. So I do it by the honor system. I'm here at work. I put the eggs out at 5 o'clock this morning and came to work. So hopefully they'll sell.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We also have Maria Diaz, Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Belonging at New Jersey Resources. Maria.
Good morning, everyone. So let's start with my passion. My passion is fashion, all jokes aside. But I will share a little bit about me. I went to Berkeley. I majored in fashion designing, and I changed, my career path, having 5 children and being a single mom. Yes, 5 children. I'm very proud to be a grandmother of 14 children right now, by the way. But I began my career at New Jersey Resources, New Jersey Natural Gas, 29 and a half years ago. I absolutely love our organization. I love our people. I changed the trajectory of my career 2.5 years ago, entering the DEIB arena, because I love our people. So my passion really is, and always will be, doing the right thing, advocating for all, and helping people find their true path or your purpose, because that's really critical. And sometimes we don't even see it, and we just need that extra little push. So thank you.
Excellent, excellent. I kind of want you to speak to my children about that, but anyway, you said it a lot more eloquently than I ever say it to them. And we also have Mary Rizzuti, who is the practice leader and compensation resources partner at Eisner Advisory Group. Mary.
Good morning, everybody. So my story is a little bit different as well. So I started out on Wall Street for a large law firm, did training and development there and was a paralegal. Took some time off, had my 2 children, and then started a part-time job. So as they grew up, I grew up. I started 2 days a week, then 3 days a week, and before I knew it, I was COO of Compensation Resources, which was a boutique firm. We do all things compensation. We then joined Eisner-Amper, which is a public accounting firm, and they have a very large advisory practice, and we now have an HR practice as well. So we have 50% of our clients in the not-for-profit space, and I think the thing that I like most about what we do is that we listen. And the listening is the learning part for us. We have learned so much about HR, about compensation, and about all of the pain points within these organizations. I'm also proud to say that the average tenure of my people is 15 years. So we're very much about culture, inclusion, and passing that along to our clients. So I'm pleased to be here and excited to discuss all of these pain points for our clients.
Excellent. So I want to start with and put Mary on the spot, because you may have noticed Mary is the only person not of color on this panel. And so I would like to hear a little bit about your perspective and the most common diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging issues you hear from your customers, since you're dealing with so many different companies.
So my perspective is twofold. So personally, I was talking and said that there was a time where I said, I don't see color. And I was sitting with a woman of color who I met at a networking event. We connected and we had breakfast. And I said, I don't see color. In my home, it was education, it was religion, and it was having fun and being kind. And she said, but you should see color. And I said, explain that to me. She said, because we all come from a different place. That was a tipping point for me, because I realized that maybe we need to open our eyes a little bit differently. Fast forward to my profession, what I hear most commonly is that I don't hear it. So people have DEI officers, and in preparation for this, in my circle and in some of my clients, I asked how many of their employees knew the name of their DEI officer. And I would say 80% didn't know the name of who the DEI officer was. Now, certainly they were large companies, but I think it goes to show that DEI is not supposed to be a position. It's not supposed to be a role. It's supposed to be something in the fabric of an organization, from a culture perspective, even from a marketing and how you go to market. And I'll talk a little bit more about job descriptions and job postings. There's a lot of different ways in which DEI should be thread through an organization, and it isn't. And to your point also, being a person not of color, you want to make sure that you don't play this imposter role, because it really isn't about color. It's a journey, and it's a journey that we're taking because within the DEI space, we have multi-generational, we have multicultural, we have married versus not married, and there's a lot of discrimination that goes on there. So there are many facets in DEI that I think is getting ignored.
Thank you, thank you. Maria, can you tell us, particularly because you are a DEIB officer, what are the challenges for an organization to make that part of the fabric of the culture?
DEIB is about your employees and the communities. So integrating it into the fabric of the organization is a given. It's not something that you should have to work towards. But ensuring that your employees feel like they are part of the fabric is what's critical. So ensuring that your employees feel that it is a safe space, that they can come to work being who they are and not have to change masks at the table when they enter the door. Ensuring that you are listening to hear, right? When they are speaking to you, you are truly listening to them. And ensuring that the communities we serve know that we are their partners and not an organization that doesn't listen to them or their needs. But for me, the most critical part really is your employees. Your employees are at the forefront of your organization, and is at a corporation or any business. Without your employees, you don't have a business.
Thank you. Herb is ready.
You know,
Jump right in.
I just want to speak on this from a different point of view.
Okay.
And I just want to tell you a quick, I know my stories are long, but just a quick story. Back in the 80s, when I was corporate vice president for a building material company, my boss, who was a Sicilian Italian, his name was Ernie Ferry. I don't know if you remember that name, Michelle. He said to me, he said, tomorrow, he said, bring in your sneakers. And I said, Ernie, I got to be out here in the building material area. I don't have time for, what am I going to bring my sneakers for? Just bring your sneakers. Brought my sneakers, was in a beautiful suit. He takes me over to the Boys and Girls Club in Trenton, and he drops me off. He said, I'll pick you up at 5 o'clock. This is 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I said, Ernie, what are you, crazy? And I never realized what went on at the Boys and Girls Club. I was in a different area. I was in Chesterfield, New Jersey. And I went in the door, introduced myself. I forgot that Ernie was on the board. And I ended up playing basketball with a bunch of kids, all different ethnic backgrounds, till 5 o'clock. I came out, Ernie was at the door. He said, you have a good time? I said, yeah. I said, I'm done. I said, I'm hooked. I'm coming back tomorrow to play basketball with these kids. He said, no, I just want you to know I put you on the board. And I said, and he said, your people need, this is back in the 80s. They didn't know anything about diversity. And he said, your people need you. And I thought about that for a second. And when I got to the board and they accepted me and approved me for the board, I happened to be the only African American on that board. And it just sent me to a whole nother level. So that was my story.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And it's funny, probably as a Black person, we don't think about what your boss said, that your people need you, right? We don't think about that because we're like, we're Black, whatever, we could show up, we could not show up, it would be okay. But that representation is important. Can we, I'm
Can
sorry.
I just add
Go right ahead.
just real fast?
I love
Sorry,
this.
Ernie, but to buy into what you said, I mean, to feed off of what you said, our kids need to see us. Having that exposure is critical. They are at an impressionable age. So doing that, I do a lot of that. I love doing that because it really is critical. And we never know what kind of impact we're going to have on who could be the next president, who could be the next attorney general.
And I think also the impact on a day-to-day basis in the workforce. So I did an exercise with my team. We have multi-generations, and I said anonymously, I want you to write down how you show up at work and what are some of the annoying things that other generations are doing to you. So that sometimes the review process, how we review work, how they prefer work to be reviewed. I had someone who was coming in at 9 o'clock every day. Our hours are 8:30. So I approached him and I said, do you have challenges coming in? He said, no, 9 o'clock works best for me. And I said, oh, okay. I said, well, that's fine, but maybe you should tell me. This way I know that there isn't an issue. And that's how we left it. But that's the difference of what's going on. But again, to respect his ability to feel that he has some control over his day, I let it go. He stays past 5:30. But I think listening also to what's going on and also providing a safe space. So we have some of our clients, we have suggested having an avenue to have people give that impact anonymously, because you don't know what's being interpreted maybe incorrectly, or some other ways that we can bring other generations and how they work best into the workforce without any fear of identification or retaliation.
And that's important because we think of race and culture, nationality, and even sexual orientation as being the primary sources for diversity. But working with not even millennials now, what is the younger group? I don't know. Yes, okay. Their expectations of life in general are different. And I think as a woman of a certain age, I know I look good, but I am much older than you think. I approached things as a supervisor initially like, I'm gonna make them bend. Like, this is how work is done. They have in turn taught me that there is some value to their perspective. Do any of you want to speak to that? Like how the mindset really which values leisure more, family time, personal time more, maybe enhances, right, the efficiency, creativity at work and productivity.
Very much so. Very much so. And to this gentleman's point, he likes to do yoga in the morning. That's how he starts his day, and so he comes in at 9 o'clock. But equally important also is the marital status and the fact that some have children and some don't. So why do some individuals get to leave at 3 o'clock to go to the soccer game, but a single person can't leave at 3 o'clock to go get her nails done? It's the same thing. It's that work-life balance, it's that flexibility, and being able to own your day. So we're seeing that also, that having children and not having children is also impacting, and the listening part is the most important.
Maria, you were gonna say something.
Work-life balance is not something that we, like my generation, grew up knowing, right? You had to work hard. 40 hours, are you kidding me? If you worked 40 hours a week, you were a slacker, right? 60, 70 hours, then, daddy was proud, right?
Yep.
Even before I took this role on, because of the bulk of my career at NJBIA I spent in operations, I worked 60, 70 hours a week. Taking on this role made me understand what work-life balance really is about, right? You can't expect employees to have that same mentality you had. Again, right, from a cultural perspective, right? I grew up in a Latino household where, again, 70 hours, daddy was proud. but not normal, right? So, understanding your employees' needs is really critical. And not just saying the words, work-life balance. Doing things to help them understand that we really are backing up what we're saying. And I'll give you an example of that. We host a quarterly meditation session in the middle of the workday. From 12 to 12:30, we have the first session. From 12:30 to 1, the second session. It is so highly attended and so appreciated by our employees. And the reason I know that is not just from the attendance. Of course, you know, I got to send out that little survey to get their real thoughts on it. But so well received. So something that takes 30 minutes, right, out of the day, and ensuring that you have coverage, you work with your managers, so on and so forth, to afford the employees, all employees, the opportunity to attend is really critical, but it also helps them understand how you mean what your work-life balance is important to us.
Herb?
I'm going to go back to the high school generation now. And one of my passions, I told you earlier, is farming. So I have 3,000 homes across the street from my house. And it's just a captured audience. It's a location, location, location. But in the spring, I have a bunch of young people from 16 to 23 who want to come work at the farm. All different ethnic backgrounds. And they come over and say to me, hey, can I work on your farm? I want to learn. And it's just so great that they want to come over and work on the farm, and I encourage them, and they come and work on the farm. But they also have personal lives, and they also have different things that they have to do, and sometimes they come over in bad moods. Sometimes they come over where they've got to have to get something done during the day. And as a boss or an owner, I have to understand that and have to be able to give them the time to go do what they need to do, but then come back and focus on the farm. But here's the best part. The best part is watching their interaction with each other. Mm-hmm. And some of them who don't even know each other, and they live in the same neighborhood, and they don't even know each other. But they become friends. And here's the part that I just don't understand as an owner of a farm. After they've been there a year, they're telling me what to do and telling me how to do stuff and how to plant. And I have to listen to them and do it their way. Because for some reason, they have gotten together and they understand that there are different ways and modern ways to do different things. And they're teaching me something. So I just want to throw that out for the 18 to 25-year-olds that want. And if you're 40, I won't hire you because no, I'm only joking. I want you.
But I think that's a good point, and the learning part of it is so important. And what we're finding is that we need to start to look at our job descriptions and kind of dust them off, because we do a lot of comp work. So the first thing we do is we read a job description, and the duties and responsibilities sometimes need to be updated, but those educational requirements, I think, need to be rethought. Is that bachelor's degree really necessary, or can we remove that? Because people may be self-selecting out of jobs that they feel they're not qualified for. And on the same spectrum, on the older generation, if you put in your job posting energetic, somebody may self-select out and say, well, I'm not energetic. Some other ways to frame that might be, we value experience, but we also embrace innovation, creativity, and fresh knowledge. But we don't want to have people self-select out for things that are unintended in a job posting or a job description, because we just keep using the same thing over and over. And on the learning and development piece of it, this is where the DEI comes in too. It's more than a position. It's really in the threads and the braiding of how we develop our individuals. So learning and development has to be top on DEI because it covers every part of the organization and also creates retention and is a savings for the organization as well. So I fully embrace the learning on both ends in every generation.
So it's interesting that you, Mary, that you would mention the requirement of a bachelor's degree or any certain degree. Obviously, me working with the county colleges, the community colleges throughout the state, and with BIA in our statewide Pathways initiative, what we have learned is that when companies or industry leaders are exposed to community college graduates or attendees, they realize that, particularly in technology, the community college students are actually getting the programming and data science practical experience sooner than students at a four-year college or university, simply because there's only 2 years, right, to get to the degree. And so it's interesting, as we held meetings last year with industry leaders in technology, how surprised they were that the community college folks were actually getting the programming and other computer skill courses in sooner, which makes them, ready for the workforce sooner. And it's no slam on the four-year colleges and universities. I went to one of the greatest ones in the U.S. I went to the University of Michigan. That doesn't usually go over well here because of Rutgers being in the Big Ten. But anyway, that opens the door to really an acknowledgement of skills over degrees, right? Which is a form of discrimination, right, for some positions, some jobs. So that's very interesting that you would mention that. Can we talk about compensation? I want to start with her because as a man, even a black man, right, you're making more than me, right, just statistically on average. And I don't know how many of you all have seen my title. I have 2 titles. You know why I have 2 titles? And I'm part of 2 organizations that are connected, because I went into my boss at some point when I was breaking my back, starting up the Pathways initiative, and I said, this is what I want to get paid. Go work it out. And of course, he did what any responsible, organization leader did. He came back to me and he offered me like $15,000 less. I was so busy, literally so busy and focused on starting this statewide Pathways initiative, which I'm proud to say we are up to 1,800 education and industry partners. Thank you. That when he said that to me, I was like, well, that's not my number, so you go back and talk to whomever to get it done. And it, I wasn't frightened. You know how when you ask for a raise, sometimes you're like, I better take the first offer. I don't want to alienate him. I was literally too busy to spend any time thinking about it because I was executing. And I was like, well, I don't know what to tell you. Go back and do what you got to do. But that's not my number. And he came back with my number and an extra title, right? More responsibility. And sometimes that happens instead of, just giving the woman or person of color her number because she's executing and doing the job, right? So I want you maybe to talk briefly, based on your experience. This whole pay equity thing is real, right?
Let me come from a nonprofit point of view, because I sit on probably, I think it's 6 nonprofit boards, and I'm slowing down, so don't ask me to sit on another nonprofit board right now. I'm trying to go the other way. I'm trying to go for for-profit. But, and I'm just trying to go through my head. The majority of the nonprofit boards I sit on have women as the CEO or the chief executive officer or president. And the one thing I'm very proud of is that the boards that I sit on have been fair, or more than fair, I think, and have brought the salary levels up in the nonprofit world for people of color and women. And I'm just so happy to be able to say that I've been a part of that. What's going through my mind is that there was a time when males, especially white males, made more as president and CEO of nonprofit boards than black males or females of color, or white females. And now I think that's changing. So from that point of view, from the nonprofit point of view, I think it's really changing. And I'm proud to say that of the nonprofits that I sit on, I think it's 4 that have females, and the salaries are at an equal level or higher.
Excellent. So I want Maria to chime in from one organization's standpoint, and then Mary, you could talk about what you see across your customers, all the organizations you are engaged with.
So you mentioned a few things, females, right? And then females of color, right? I think as females, period, and I was just having this conversation with a gentleman this morning, and sorry, I don't remember your name. We do a horrible job at advocating for ourselves. Even if we have our legwork, we have the whole PowerPoint presentation put together on why we should receive this pay. We don't deliver it. We talk ourselves out of it. I think that as an organization, that's actually one of the things I'm most proud of is we perform pay equity audits, which are critical, right? You need to see what's out there. You need to see what the benchmark practices are or best practices are, and know the worth of your talent. Don't let your talent leave because you didn't do your legwork. You know, as a leader, which is, like I said, one of the things I'm most proud of this organization, we are so good at doing that, ensuring that salaries, even when we bring in new talent, that we have that salary component, which is critical, right? I've seen the trajectory of careers change in the organization, and what I mean by that is, it's not just about the salary anymore either, right? It's about what you offer the employee as far as work-life balance, right? Understanding family, right? Understanding that you don't have to perform your job just chained behind a desk anymore, right? You can actually have that flexibility of working from home. So all of that, to me, has just changed the entire career path can change the entire career path of anyone. But ensuring that you are being fair to your employees is the utmost importance.
Thank you. And Mary, what do you see across all the companies that you consult with?
So 50% of our clients are in the not-for-profit space, 50% in the privately held. We develop compensation studies. So we have a library of over 3,000 surveys. What we do is we look at the position first. So that's your market study. So what does the position bear on the market? We then look at the people. And what we do is we slot them into a salary structure. That's where the work begins. So we do quintiles. You have a minimum of 25th, a 50th, a 75th, and a maximum. When we start to slot people in, they're dispersed across these grades in different quintiles. But now the conversation is why. So do we have a certain population that's all in the lower quintile? And if so, why? Many things impact compensation. It could be performance, it could be seniority. But if it isn't any of those things, now action needs to be taken. And that transition plan becomes your compensation philosophy as well. In addition, the learning and development is very important. So if we see somebody at the low end of the range, we want to start to put in a learning and development program in place. Additionally, we've heard where people are in the low end of the range and they say, well, they're not a flight risk, so we don't really need to do anything about it. That's inequity. So even though you don't feel you need to spend on that person, we want to be equal and fair. The other piece of it is that not-for-profits sometimes can't spend the money that a for-profit company can. But as long as it's equitable, so I had a client in the education support space. Most of their employees were retired teachers. So they had pensions, And so they were able to pay at the low end of the market. But the important part was they were consistent in how they did it. So it wasn't just a handful of individuals that were at the low end. So the consistency, the strong methodology, and how you approach your studies is really what's important. And then the career pathing. Not everybody wants to go up in the organization. Some people want to have wider duties and responsibilities and continue to grow in their salaries. That's also the responsibility of the comp and HR people and your senior leadership to embrace having people stay with the organization and continue to grow and develop and have the comp reflect that growth and development.
Maria, I saw you grab your mic.
I'm the troublemaker, in case y'all didn't notice. There's a couple things you said, right? And I want to touch base on a few, just comment on a few. Ensuring that you are looking at your pay structure and that you're being fair is critical, but also knowing, right, like for me, development, right? Development is offering those opportunities to the employees, but the employees have to also take ownership of their development. And like you said, some employees want to, move up the ladder or accept more responsibilities, some don't, right? And that's important as far as pay equity, ensuring that you are paying their employees their worth and paying your employees not just what's, considered, equal pay, but ensuring that you are continuously, and we have a compensation team, continuously monitoring what the compensation is and most importantly, like I said, their worth.
I mean, the other thing, too, that came to light for us for one client, once we did the market study and once we slotted everybody into their positions, it looked fine because the position and range percentage was pretty consistent. But then when we took it one step further, and I said, let's look at the hierarchy. So the numbers look right, the representation looks right, but let's look at the hierarchy. And sure enough, the minority population was not represented in the top tier of the organization. So even though the calculations came out right, when you looked at the hierarchy, there was something very much off balance. So you really have to look at it from all different perspectives.
Herb?
I'm sitting here listening to these two beautiful women talk about, I have one quick question. I'm sorry, you're the moderator, but I had to ask this question. What is the correlation between stability, and by that I mean a person who is looking for a job who hasn't changed jobs every 2 years or every 4 years, versus the salary level that businesses will offer?
We really don't pay attention to that anymore because it's an
Really?
acceptance of this is what the generation is. They move. They don't stay 15 years anymore, but we shouldn't penalize them for it because sometimes jumping around brings to us new perspectives, different ideas, so we don't penalize that. And I do have clients who may say, well, we don't want to invest in learning and development because they're going to leave in 2 years anyway. That's discrimination. So we try to keep that off the table and just look at the position and what the organization needs the position to be doing.
And I look at that the same way, except I also consider what I can learn from that individual in the time that they do spend with us.
So we're going to be wrapping up. So I want each of you to impart on this audience the one thing you really want us to take away about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And I'm going to start with Maria.
You've been picking on me all morning.
That's because your outfit is so cute.
Thank you.
I could tell fashion is your passion.
Diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging is not just critical to your organization and your growth. It is about your people. It is about our people. It is about doing the right thing and ensuring that you afford everyone the opportunity to grow and to feel welcomed in your organization.
Mary.
I believe that DEI should be in every thread of the organization. It should be at every seat at the table. I think it's a journey. If we think about 1967, the the job postings used to post male wanted and female wanted. We've come a long way, but we're still on the journey, and I think it has to be top of mind. I don't think it's a position. I don't think it's a person. I think it's the threads of an organization, and it doesn't only have to be within the organization. It could also be in your community, too.
How many of you are on nonprofit boards? How many of you want to be on nonprofit boards? The one thing that I see is that we need to develop young people, no matter what the ethnic background, into learning how to be on nonprofit boards. We've got to get young people into nonprofit boards. We've got to make that transition, but we've got an educate them. And plus, the best part about it, we talk about community colleges. I sit on a nonprofit board of a community college, or a community college board. And the best time that I have and the best experience that I have is when I'm able to talk to the staff and talk to the young people about eventually becoming and doing their part and becoming part of a nonprofit board or becoming part of a college board. And I think that's important. So I think it's important to get young people into nonprofits. The one thing that we have at the Chamber, and you're going to hear from her in a little while, you're going to hear from a dynamic person in Elizabeth Williams-Riley, sitting right here. You have a captured person who does DE&I day in and day out. But you're going to hear about young people needing to have the opportunity to be on a nonprofit board, which will educate them. And in turn, it shows staff that that board and that organization is diverse. And hopefully it's a snowball effect for that organization.
When I applied for college, and I'm going to just say it, in 1986, my essay, and this was before the Common App, right? My essay was entitled, "Everything is Better with Diversity." And in 1986, this was not even a term widely used. I must have read a book or something that mentioned diversity, and probably not in the context as we are discussing it today. But every once in a while, I reflect on that essay and what I was maybe thinking about, right? Because who knows what 18-year-old Catherine was thinking about. But I think it's still, the premise is still true, and that is everything is better with diversity. Things are more efficient, productive, creative. And I think if we could always keep that in mind, maybe we could accomplish some of the points that the panelists have shared and really incorporate DEIB as part of the fabric of our organization. Thank you for having us. Thank you to the panelists.
What a great way to start us off. First of all, I do have to say, so Herb, that picture on any given day is in our lobby. And the first time that I walk into, so Herb and I know each other for probably 30 years, right? And so, I walk in, I'm like, seriously, I have to, first thing I have to see when I come to the office is see Herb Ames, really, right? and I love it, Herb, so thank you. What a great panel. I heard about the aha moment, right? And I as we take a break and we network, I want everybody to think about what was your DEI aha moment, because I know every one of us had one. And as I send you off, I'm going to quickly give you mine. I grew up in North Bergen. I now pronounce my R's, North Bergen. All right, it was North Bergen. But anyway, I grew up in North Bergen in Hudson County, and it was the beginning of diversity. In fact, I love telling the story that in kindergarten, the very 5-year-old Michelle was asked to be the buddy for the first ESL student that came into our kindergarten class who spoke Spanish. And I'm thinking like, why'd you pick me, right? So just interesting. And now if you go to Hudson County, you see the incredible diversity that is Hudson County, right? So, but I grew up and I was taught just, work hard. We talked about those 70, 80-hour days, everything through education, through work, and otherwise. So I always thought I was born with a plastic spoon in my mouth. I worked really hard, paid my whole way through my whole education, everything else. And I was on the board of the YWCA of Trenton, and we did a retreat. And the whole discussion of privilege was discussed, and the idea of white privilege. And all of a sudden, and I'm sitting there saying, it's all about hard work, it's all about hard work. And I went home that night, and when I retold the story to my children about what I experienced that day and asked them to think about it, my aha moment was there is such a thing as white privilege. No matter how hard I worked or what I did, I had to acknowledge and accept and recognize that I was born into a white woman's body, which potentially makes a difference of being born into a black woman's body. That was my aha moment. I see some heads going. So think about your aha moment. Let's take a break, let's network, and let's be back in about 12 minutes, okay? Thanks so much.